And we're off to the races, people. Dylan's gonna kill me. It's literally almost 1 a.m. I'm a psychopath and I have put this off like nobody's business. There's just some days that I'm a big procrastinator, believe it or not. I'm being productive, but I'm not actually doing the important things. It's like when you needed to be doing a very important essay that was due at the end of the quarter and you put it off to the last minute. Like, I'm not necessarily that type of person, but like sometimes with the really important things, I do put them off until the very end. So yeah. Anywho, it's literally almost 1 a.m. It is Tuesday, February 19th. I was MIA last week and I didn't prepare well enough to record 2 because I was at my company's kickoff. For those of you who are new here, I am Faith. I live in New York City. I've been here for 3.5 years. I'm born and raised in California. I work in tech sales. I work remotely. And I live with my boyfriend who's sleeping and who was already like getting upset with me because I was already working so late because I've been procrastinating all day. Again, being productive. But now I come home and I need to like do things that are vocal. So he wasn't too happy with me. But alas, here we are. But yeah, I wasn't here last weekend due to my corporate job and its duties to do these like quarterly in-person meetups, which normally like I don't dread. And like honestly, this company, like I don't really dread them. They just like are a lot. For those of you who are not familiar with kickoffs or like tech sales or tech in general, there just tends to be more money thrown at these events. And considering we're remote, there's a lot of money, I believe, that we're sitting on. So they're able to throw a lot at these events. And they flew the whole GTM, which is go-to-market team, to Charleston, South Carolina. Normally so excited. We were on Sullivan's Island, even more excited. It's where they filmed Dear John. It's like the white sand beaches, so beautiful. But they literally had us cooped up in the resort all day, 8 a.m. to 5:30 until the sunset. And the weather was like not great anyways, but like you literally don't leave. I didn't even bring workout clothes with me because I've been burned so many times by packing the shoes and the sports bras and the shorts and then not even using any of it and just like looking at my workout clothes sitting there and being like, I'm neglecting you. But this time around, like I literally was so restless sitting in the chair so early in the morning to late at night that I was like, I wish so badly I had my workout clothes so I could just like sprint on the treadmill, full sprint, 20 minutes, be done. Because you get like you're so cooped up. You're like, what's going on? I literally feel like a caged animal. And yeah, it's always like interesting. And then especially being a remote company, that adds to another layer on top of like the socialization. Like you think people who have been in working corporate America for some time now have a good read on social cues, but maybe they've always been weird. Maybe they've never been able to like keep up with the social cues, and I would consider myself a fairly normal person. I find that I can read people fairly well, not excellent, like I do miss some things, but I do try to make people feel comfortable and like ask questions. And that's like part of what I wanted to talk about today is like how to navigate corporate America if you're newly entering or if you're deep within it and you're feeling these little anxieties about these in-person things, or if you go into the office and you're like, I don't know if this is like normal, if I should be doing this, or how to socialize with leaders, etc. And I have some ideas based on the limited exposure I've had to like some of these things. But for better or for worse, I'd have to believe it's for better. My company is predominantly men in tech sales. It's a very like technical product we sell. So it definitely garners more men. I don't know whether it's like a psychology thing of like men trust from buying from other men, or people trust from buying from other men, especially when it comes to like really technical engineering sales, or only men are applying to these jobs, or both, probably both. But it makes for like very interesting in-person engagements. that honestly like aren't, it's not anything to write home about, because it's definitely the energy that you put off, especially in male dominant industries and companies and teams. It's the energy you give off that kind of can invite certain things, but sometimes you're not giving off anything. Sometimes you're not even looking, and you're like, what the is going on? Like, what are you doing? So I'm here to help with like some of those like subtle things to help de-escalate situations and just be aware of your surroundings, especially if you're a woman working in a corporate environment, but also how to kind of leverage your power and kind of know when it's okay to turn on the people-pleasing element, and this stands for both men and women, and kind of socialize with your peers a bit more outside of your team, and particularly with the leaders, and get some FaceTime visibility with them, especially if you are an individual contributor, which I am, being on a sales team. So one thing that I used to always kind of harp on, and I'm embarrassed to admit this now, but when I was at my former company, I remember I would like try to encourage all of my colleagues. I was like, guys, like we shouldn't just be standing all together, all of us SDRs in a little huddle. Like we should be socializing with other people. And I remember I like viscerally felt that it made people uncomfortable when I would say that. And like it really wasn't my place to like tell people what to do. I should have just like done my own thing and like led by example. And if they wanted to follow, they could. I wasn't asking for anybody to follow. But I more thought of it like it was to your betterment if you did try to at least meet one new person at the event, and like brownie points if it's somebody of leadership that you know that can kind of be involved in your promotion process moving forward. Like it's about that visibility. So at my last company, like I would like really try to work the room, and like, oh my God, the exhaustion that I would feel at the end of the day by having to be so on, and like honestly not being myself made me realize that, and like forcing conversations, and like they say to never meet your heroes, but like this was my first job out of college, so any person in leadership, I was like, wow, you must be the smartest person ever. And soon realized, I was like, whoa, nobody knows what's going on. And if anything, I probably have a better understanding of the business at this level than some of these executives do. It's like, it's crazy. But I overdid it the first time around. However, it did teach me that like you do need to get that FaceTime with some important people to kind of accelerate yourself through an organization and like be impressionable. And I'm not saying like if it's a talent show, like you have to like go out there and like, hey, how you doing? Like, oh my God, like read up on their LinkedIn and like know everything about them. But it's maybe calling on a few instances of a time that they were on a call with you, or like maybe you pinged them and asked them for something, or like maybe you know a fact about them, that they live in Arkansas, or that they have 2 children, or that they really like golden retrievers, and kind of having that as your icebreaker to go in. Or maybe they spoke on a panel earlier that day, and you can go up and be like, hey, I really liked your presentation. I know it's so hard going up there on like day 3 of these things, and you're not sure if everybody's listening, but like it really seemed like you had a lot of people's attention. Like thinking of things that you would want somebody to say to you, and typically these people in leadership are presenting during these kickoffs and during these like company-wide organizations, gatherings, whatever you call it. But my first company, I was like going door to door. I was like a door-to-door salesperson. I was like going up to all these people, introducing myself, whatever, making myself known. And then I'd come back to the SDRs and they'd still be like in their little huddle. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, go talk to people, like go do this. And then it also, a sub note off of that is I don't think it hurts, but I do think there are certain organizations, I don't think it hurts ever to like socialize yourself, especially at gatherings when you don't have a ton of people who either live in the same city as where your office is or where you're located, or maybe you just rarely have, maybe your executives and leaders are in the same city as you, but they just like don't come into the office, or they are, but they're like in and out. I don't think it hurts to socialize with them, but I also think there are certain organizations that make leaders more accessible. Like some companies will say like it's a open door policy. You can come in and talk to me anytime, and that you learn that's not very true, or you learn that it's like kind of a waste of your time if you're going in there and kind of like sharing your perspectives and coming in there with like, you know, I really think it would be helpful to establish this type of program, and like come with a outline. Like you have to enter those types of conversations with a business plan, essentially, because like their time is essentially more valuable than yours. But there are organizations that do prioritize the people pleasing and the socializing a little bit more than others, and my last company definitely was. So I think I was feeding into that, but also I was just new, and I was like, I'm gonna go talk to these people and make myself known, and that's like a pretty brave thing to do, and like slightly cringe that I was like trying to get everybody to do it with me, but it's okay. Whereas this time around, I just like didn't want to feel that exhaustion that I did when I would try to work the room at my last company. So honestly, I kind of kept myself a little bit more and found and just like felt way more relaxed and like way more myself. Like there are people that I naturally made eye contact with and would have a conversation with, and there are specific people who I did intend to speak with and thank for their help, especially being remote, for helping me accelerate a deal, for sending messages on my behalf, for giving advice on like how to navigate whatever certain things. But there also were people that I was like, I literally like I want to turn around, I don't want to see you, and we would just end up talking. And then there are the people that you're like, I have no idea who you are, what are you doing, why are you talking to me, why are you being a weirdo? And so there's those types of things you can navigate, and it cracks me up because this just has to be across the board, across all companies. It's not just tech, no way. But every single time we have a company gathering, our CRO, CEO, someone always makes an announcement like, act your age, behave, don't drink too much, don't do anything you wouldn't want to do, whatever, like don't regret anything. And there are some crazy stories I've heard, like people getting fired on President's Club, which for those of you who don't know, President's Club is what you make when you're one of the top performing reps. And sometimes organizations like my company now will send SDRs, they'll send people from marketing ops, sales ops, FinOps, like people who are just top performers across the company, which I really do like that they expand it. But like people get like lit, and it's even more embarrassing when it's at a company-wide gathering like these when things go wrong. And I haven't witnessed anything, but I have heard stories of people getting fired for like sobbing on the CEO's shoulders, trying to get up on the CEO's shoulders and like ride their back, like crazy shit that just unhinged. And you start to see like especially being like newer in the workforce, you'll see like, first of all, if you're newer in the workforce, try not to drink really at work events. Like I definitely don't condone more than 3 drinks because you really want to be impressionable and you don't want to make it seem like you're going to act your age. Like you do want to kind of elevate yourself. So I tend to like not really drink at all, or if I do drink and have like 3 drinks or 4, it'll be like with one person on my team that I'm like, let's just like go gossip in the corner, and I'll talk more about kind of how to find a connection and a connection with the person that you can trust and like have fun with and laugh, because that's really important in work life. But I would definitely advise, if you're going to these events and you're newer at your company, or if you're just like not sure, just like get a club soda, get a lime, get a water, put a lime in it. Nobody has any idea. Like soon enough, people are like 3 drinks in and repeating themselves, and you're just like, I'm gonna go to bed. A lot of people at my company actually are sober, so there's tons of people that are on the same wavelength. But there are things you'll start to see, especially when alcohol is involved at these company gatherings, that you're like, what? Are you like okay? Like literally affairs, literally younger going for older, like SDRs going for reps, like people going for married men, other way around, like just nutty stuff that you like only thought happens in the movies. That certainly happens in corporate America, and it just baffles me that I understand a work romance. I understand that it's kind of hard to navigate a work romance. However, obviously possible, because people marry their colleagues all the time, and it's just like naturally you're with this person majority of the time if you don't work remote. And okay, so what? Like the politics get a little weird, and unfortunately I don't have much advice on like when to exit a situation, or like when to know if it's office safe. I would say not to avoid, but don't lean in. Don't avoid, but don't lean in, per se. There's a lot of fish in the sea. So if you're finding that things are getting a little stirring up a little bit, like really assessing the situation, maybe getting another colleague's opinion of whom you really trust, preferably just getting a friend or a sibling's perspective. But back to what I was originally talking about is when alcohol starts to get integrated into these work events, you start to see sides of people that you're like, I just don't need to see this. Like, this is just unnecessary. Like, people, no one's home. They're just like staring at you like a blank wall, leaning up against the wall, just like freaking bobbing back and forth. And you're like, are you gonna murder me? Or are you thinking of cutting off my head? Like, what the fuck is going on with you? People go mute and you're like, what's happening? So there are certain triggers of where you're like, to just remove yourself from the situation and just go back to your hotel room. And then there are also times where you can just like remove yourself from the situation and like go find your group of people. But above all, it's very important to have like at least one work friend that you have there. And I'll talk about the two situations. One, so my company's obviously remote, or not obviously, or something like that. It's remote, but I think I've said that a few times. And I've been here for almost a year, and honestly, it took me until a year to like really form a good relationship with my team, my extended team, and in particular, just like one person that I've really connected with. And there absolutely, it is possible to navigate the politics of a company and navigate these in-person events when you don't feel like you have your person. Like, you can make it work 100%. And in some ways, you have to find the silver lining of like, oh, it's so nice. I can just like go to a hotel room in Utah or in whatever, Colorado, and just like have a hotel room entirely to myself. I can expense things. I don't have to pay for anything. Like, there are a lot of perks to work trips that you kind of have to find the silver lining, but it also can be really lonely. You're like, I'm sitting in this big conference room all day. I get no sunlight. I'm not able to work out. I'm not necessarily eating the foods I want to eat. I'm not really having engaging conversation with people. Like, I don't necessarily want to be with these people. My friends are back home doing all these things, doing all these fun things, whatever. Typically, the work events are during the week, so you don't have to have FOMO of the weekends. But I'm telling you, it is possible to navigate the politics of a company if you feel like you don't have your people. Like, it definitely makes it better, but there absolutely are silver linings to just riding the wave. And eventually, in particular, remote companies, you will kind of drift more towards the people that are like vibrationally or on the same page. I'd say for this one person in particular, I was actually like match made with her through my VP, who since left my company, but he was like, you guys have really similar backgrounds. You guys are from UCLA. You came in as SDRs, and then was promoted to AE and to Grafana. Like, you guys should like connect. And honestly, I don't know if it weren't for him, if like we would have connected, but it just started with putting weekly one-on-ones to just like catch up. And we were supposed to be talking about work, but we've had probably like 7 one-on-ones since, and we never talk about work. We like always talk about our personal lives and just fun stuff. And it made this time where we had this kickoff so much better because we had each other, and like we knew about each other. We knew a little bit about each other's lives and like how we process things and think about things, and it made it so much more fun. And then outside of that, we do have like a broader team that we all really get along with. And I have to say, a great tip for entertaining yourselves during the conferences and during the presentations, especially when it's becoming unbearable, is playing Would You Rather. And you need to keep this group chat only on iMessage and top secret. Nobody can have access to it, only the most trusted people of your team. And you can like put the most ruthless truth or dares and would you rathers on there. Like, would you rather dress up in a clown costume and hide behind the stage and scare the CEO? Or would you rather have to stand on the stage for like a whole hour, someone presenting, and just stand there, and they ask you to leave and you're like, I can't, like I literally have to stand here. Like, then you can come, if it's a muscle you have to exercise, and you get really good at them. But the would you rathers are freaking hilarious, and they just like keep things entertained and light, especially when you guys are just like sitting there watching all these presentations and questioning your sanity and humanity and why you're here. But yeah, navigating corporate America. I learn something new every year, every month, honestly. But I do think there's a good balance to strike between putting yourself out there and like trying to. I don't think it hurts. I definitely think this is a net win of like making yourself visible to leaders and just saying like, hi, my name's Faith. Like, we haven't connected before. Like I said, if you do have something that you can draw on, whether it be an interaction you had with them, whether they presented, whether you know a fact about them, bringing that up in your conversation as a conversation starter. And like, don't, if they're awkward, then like that's on them, because they should be trained at this point to know that people beneath them are going to be coming up and introducing them, and they should have things that they can draw on to keep the conversation going. So like, and that's when you start to realize too, like, these people are just like weird. Like, some people are just weird, and like even people who have ultimate decision making power to like change the course of the company, budget holders, like, you're just like, you can't even carry a conversation. Like, it actually is crazy. And if anything, that should be reassuring to you if you coin yourself as more of like a easier to talk to type of person. Like, of course, we have our drawbacks. Like, don't put me in front of the budget. Don't put me in front of the finances. I'm pretty decisive, but like, I could make a very disastrous decision. Like, obviously these people are here because they did some things right, but for the most part, like, you will truly be shocked by the people in power, in positions of power at your company, particularly at these in-person events, and particularly at when alcohol is involved. And then on the flip side, and this is kind of how I feel about my company, is, I mean, there's always like outliers, but you will be like, wow, I actually think you're extremely intelligent. And for me, I was like, I'm like so impressed with my company that we hire such intelligent A-playing people. So that's another silver lining of like, wow. And also, if like everybody's a whack job, that's also freaking hilarious, because sometimes I feel like we work at companies and it's theater class. Like, the weirdest kids in the group, people are doing weird things, people have weird hobbies, people talk weird, everybody's weird, and it's like theater. Like, you know you're in for a good time, but like, you're also scared. So that is corporate America. Corporate America is theater class. You're scared and entertained, half and half. So yeah, that is about my best advice for anybody entering the workforce. Thank you very much. But anywho, it's literally 1:12 a.m. I'm a psychopath lately, and this happens to me especially when I'm coming off like work events, and this is why I know I could not function in a company where I had to travel a lot. Like, I thought I could. I can't, because I love my space and I love being in control of my space. I have unformally diagnosed OCD like 100%, and I'm a huge control freak. So when I'm like out of town for a few days and like my boyfriend Dylan is here, I literally will text him like a day before I'm coming home. I'm like, please make sure there's no hair all over the bed, vacuum the floors, vacuum the bathroom, shake out the bath mat. Like, there's specific things that I'm like, you have to do in order for me to feel like comfortable. And then I come home and I just do it all myself again, even though he's done it, and he gets all mad. He's like, I already did that. He's like following me around the apartment. He's like, I did that. I'm like, it's a mental thing. Let me do it. But sometimes when I come off these work events and I'm feeling like really restless, my mind, I'm able to like surrender during the work events to kind of relaxing in a way. Like, I am productive. I am working on my computer subtly while people are presenting and like getting work done. But I am able to surrender to the fact that like, I can't really do a lot productivity wise for myself or for work. However, sometimes it does counteract, and I get home and I'm a very busy body. I like become very restless, and like, this is what happened this time around, and my mind is racing about all these things that are so unnecessary and so irrelevant. But like, oh, must book flight to Vegas in 5 months for a hypothetical dad-daughter trip. Must follow up with Dylan's dad to plan an event for them to come into the city. Must RSVP to this. These are more personal things. And then professional things like, I don't know, just random. Must build this deck for in 3 weeks when I have this one meeting with this one executive. Like, everything has to happen all at once for me to feel like ultra productive. And so I come home from the weekend and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like addicted to my phone. I'm already addicted to my phone. I don't know how to get rid of it. I'm so OCD about my to-do list. Like literally, I remember in high school when my attachment to my to-do list started, when I started creating it on the Apple Notes app, to the point where if I accidentally deleted it, first of all, I'd have a panic attack and I'd hyperventilate, but then I'd be able to sit down and recall pretty much line by line every single thing I had on my to-do list. And I don't want to show you my to-do list because I'm honestly really embarrassed, but it incorporates both personal and professional. There has to be a better way for me to organize this, but it's the habit of always going to my notes app that I can't break. So it's impossible for me to change the app that I'm using because it's always my notes app. And it's actually hilarious because if you guys have ever used the notes app, it looks like, and I probably only know this because I work in technical sales, it looks like code, like SQL or Python, the font and stuff. So sometimes when I'm on the airplane and I'm like writing feverishly on my notes app, like people think I'm coding, and I've been asked if I like am an engineer, and I'm like, no, it's my psychotic notes app. I'm writing that I need to shower and shave my toes in 2 days. But I literally could sit down and recall my entire to-do list, and that's when I knew I had a problem, and that's when I knew I wasn't going to stop it. But when I come back from not feeling super productive and wanting to counteract that and feel super productive, I literally get so attached to my phone, my mind is racing, like truly, I don't know how to stop it. I start seeing things that I just don't need to see, like I see dust specks, I see things on the floor, like I'm seeing Dylan eat the chocolate and it's like falling everywhere, and I'm like, what are you doing? And I just like really bother myself. Like I piss my own self off, and then I hyperfixate on pissing myself off, and then whatever. And then I'm always late to everything, and it's a snowball effect. Then I end up running to my Pilates class in literally 15-degree weather with like 60 miles per hour tundra winds, literally like cursing under my breath, running. And it's just a snowball effect. And it just, I'm hoping I'm at the tail end of it. Me recording this at 1:16 is not proving otherwise, but if you are in a similar boat as me and like you just get really restless in your mind and your body and you're like trying to play catch up with yourself, I think that's the best way to put it. I think some ways that I'm helping myself navigate through these like motions are I remind myself that one day I'm going to have children, and like I won't have access to be able to do this anymore, and like I'm going to have to be either allow myself not to be productive, release how I view productivity, but also giving myself more grace. And how I do that is I create non-negotiables for myself. Hence, I'm not punishing myself per se, but like I did say I was going to record my podcast 3 days ago, didn't do it. And I was like, I'm doing it tonight. And I could have made up every excuse not to record, but at the same time, honestly, this is giving me reprieve from feeling super productive and like feeling like I need to like move things around in my apartment and like be a whack job. And also it's checking something off my list. A non-negotiable is working out. That is something that gives me actual joy. And although over the weekend I literally was so deep in the trenches of my catching up with myself that I had to bring my phone into the class with me, which I never do because that is like sacred me time. And I was like writing shit on my notes app while we were working out because I like was thinking of new things. Like that's how bad it was. But typically working out is a total non-negotiable. Typically like thinking future self, like Faith, enjoy this, enjoy being a psychopath, because come a few years, whoever knows what my future has what my future has in store for me, I won't be able to like have these spirals. I'll have children I need to keep alive. But those are two things that like really help me talk myself off the ledge from just like continuing to spiral, and at least like being aware of it as well, I think is important. Like I am aware that I'm making this harder than it needs to be, and like I will never forget this. It is truly something that I live by in my life, and one day I'll have the organization to write down like all of my things I live by, like my Mel Gibbons sayings. But one thing that one of my friends, Megan Matthews, if you're listening, I love you, she was like talking to me. We were pulling up into my dad's house, his old house in Menlo Park. We were in the car and we were talking about like podcasts. I think she was like dropping me off, and she was like, oh, you should really listen to this woman, this podcast. She's like really like real. I literally can't even remember what it was, but I feel like I learned everything I needed to do from Megan. And she was like, yeah, I just listened to this podcast today, and she was talking about, and this is based on a conversation we had been having in the car, and she was talking about how people make things harder than they need to be by the way you think about things, mostly by the way you think about things. The way you think about things has a very influential way to make things feel and perceive way harder than they are. Hence, me spiraling, coming off this work trip, thinking of the dumbest things that I don't need to be thinking of. I'm making my life harder, and I'm making things more challenging for myself, and I'm doing it to myself. Say you're in a situation with a friend and you're like kind of hyperfixating on if they like you and if you guys like really get along, or if you're like insecure about your boyfriend and like if he's faithful to you, or like something that's like very anxiety inducing. First, recognize, am I making the situation harder than it needs to be? Are there answers that I can ask and seek to find? Are there questions that I can ask and seek to find answers for? Or is this truly like a situation that I'm choosing over and over again? I think having that, like, that ability to like withdraw yourself from the situation and take some accountability is like, does this need to be this difficult, is very critical for mental health and for like sustaining a happy and fulfilling life, because it's very easy to fall into a pattern of pinning blame on things. Like, I easily could have fallen into the narrative of coming back from the trip, which I did at first, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't feel so productive. Like, we literally were trapped in a room all day. We were trapped in a room all day from 8 a.m. to 5:30, and then we had pretty crappy food, like gut balmy food, like biscuits and gravy and steak and all this stuff that just like makes you feel like sludge. No time to work out, yada yada. Come back from a trip, feel like I have to play catch up, whatever. Whereas like you can flip everything on its head, first recognizing, wow, I made that whole narrative seem way harder than it needs to be. Flip it on its head. I'm so grateful to be employed, to have a great job, to have a team that I actually really enjoy being with, to have a specific person at my company that I really get along with, to have an environment where a company encourages people to learn together and foster like a great learning environment, to be in Sullivan's Island, South Carolina. Yeah, I can't really like hang out that much, but got me out of New York. I'm not missing out on the weekend. I can be here during the week. It's slightly warmer than New York. I get to meet new people at my company. I get to feel invigorated with the company's mission and actually like feel really inspired to sell a lot of software for us, because I think we have a great product. I get to come home to a beautiful apartment, to a loving boyfriend. I have the means to buy all these wonderful cleaning supplies, and I'm very able-bodied to clean my whole apartment, even if my boyfriend just did it last night. He loves me enough to do that. I have a 3-day weekend ahead of me, so I can maybe somehow pencil in some time of relaxation. I get to move my body. I can go to a workout class and have all fully functioning limbs to lift heavy weights and jump up and down and whatever. Like, literally having the recognition of a situation in your life that's not ideal. Like, this is like a surface level one, of course, but there definitely are deeper examples that you can probably think of, every single day, of a situation that's not ideal in your life, and quickly asking yourself, am I making this harder than it needs to be? And then an exercise that I just did to help pull you out of that and root yourself in gratitude is thinking of all the things that you are able to do. And then it kind of softens and lightens your perspective on the situation in itself. And I'm sure there are many circumstances where we can think of where like it would probably be hard to be like an optimist. But I do know that optimism and positivity is so much better in the long run for your wrinkles and for your longevity and for your happiness. And it was kind of funny because ironically, me not even being here for a year, I'm like tenured, and that means that I'm like one of the longest standing commercial reps. But that does sound concerning. However, a lot of people get promoted. Like it fosters a good environment here. Or some people move on to, they've been at the company for a while, they just move on, but the churn isn't that bad. And so I was elected to like say some words of advice to the new hires at our company, just within our like commercial team. There's probably like 50 of us, alongside like 3 other people who gave some advice. And I already knew immediately what my advice was going to be, because specifically being in sales where your performance is directly tied to a number, I'm constantly assessing my situation to think, am I making this more difficult than it needs to be? And am I doing everything in my power to succeed and to at least say that I tried my best? And with that, it's so easy for you to be negative and to pin blame on the circumstance. I don't have a good territory. My manager isn't supportive. My colleagues are taking my accounts. My deals keep falling through because the company goes bankrupt and the people stop responding to me. Like literally everything over the moon you could think of. But my advice that I gave people, because it's easy for human nature to be negative. So I wanted to remind us all, and remind myself to keep doing this, is like my best advice to all of you new hires and to the current hires is to be positive and be optimistic. Like, we all are signing up for this job, and this goes outside of sales as well. For all of you listening, you all are doing something that is probably hard, and it is very important to recognize, am I making this harder than it needs to be by being negative? How am I viewing this situation? What are some good things that I can pull from what I'm doing today? Am I making money? Yes. Am I employed? Yes. Do I like some of my colleagues? Do I like one of my colleagues? Hopefully, yes. Does my job provide me a lifestyle that I enjoy? Yes. And if you're able to say yes to even like 2 of those, that's at least you're recognizing in your brain that good things are happening, and you will stimulate the good vibes, the good serotonin in yourself that kind of, if we're thinking like really hypothetical, like can pull yourself out of this like fight or flight that you can often feel when you're in these situations with a hard environment, whatever it might be. So that was my advice to the team. I was like, you need to be optimistic. And outside of that is you need to be optimistic about your role, because people will see you. And in sales, you need the team to work with you to help you win. And if people know that you're not a very positive person, it's going to make it very hard for them to want to work with you and want to help you. People want to help happy people. People want to help optimistic people, because it's self-serving. Like, you feel good about yourself when you're working with this person. They feel good about themselves. Like, it goes both ways. And I do completely recognize that it is far easier to be way more negative. Like, we are all predisposed to be negative. It's way easier to fall into the patterns of don't like myself, don't like my job, don't like how much money I'm making, don't like my friends, don't like my boyfriend, don't like my apartment, don't like my clothes, everything. But if you're just able to flip it on its head, think to yourself, am I making this more difficult than it needs to be? I hate my whole wardrobe. Okay, how can I make this easier? Maybe I can sell some stuff on Poshmark, make some money. Maybe every single one item I buy that's new and that I really enjoy, I'm excited about, I sell a piece to make room for it, but also feel good and like feel more sustainable. That was a stupid example. But positivity in my head equals longevity, and the broader theme of one that I live by. And hopefully I can again accumulate like these sayings, because there are a few of them that I like truly live by is don't make things harder than they need to be. Don't make things harder for yourself. Try in many ways to recognize when you are doing that, take a step back, flip it on its head, find things that are actually the silver linings and positive in the situation, even if they're a reach, because the more that you stimulate the goodness and being able to see positively of things, the more you exercise that muscle in your brain that doesn't exist, but like truly the more it's like your brain, the neural patterns are like ski slopes. Like the more you ski down the same path, the deeper the impression goes into the snow. So the more you think positively about things, the easier it becomes for you to just think positively in general. And like I truly do feel that for myself today. Like I feel like I'm more positive than I've ever been in my life. And I just feel so optimistic, and I'm not even like I'm the most optimistic I've ever been, but I so quickly recognize when I'm falling into the pattern of making things hard and like speaking negatively or thinking negatively, and I can flip it on its head, or at least give myself some sort of relief by doing something I really enjoy, putting myself in a situation where it's hard for me to make any excuses, having things to look forward to on the weekend. But I find whether I do feel like I'm the most positive I've ever been, but I do think it's because I've become so hyper aware of recognizing when I'm making things difficult for myself and not doing that. So I really, really encourage you guys to try to do that yourself, because you will find just your mood is more elated and you're more enjoyable to be around. Like, how embarrassed would you feel if people told you that, like, oh, you're really negative and it's like hard to be around you? Like, if the walls could talk and people actually told you how they genuinely felt about you, like if people told you like, oh, you're like really negative, oh my God, I would be so devastated for myself, so insulted, so disappointed in myself. Like, that is one of the greatest insults. So not that I do this all for that, but you just really have to think, especially if you are geared towards the more pessimistic, you either have to surround yourself by all the pessimists in the world, or you can think, why am I choosing this over and over again? Am I choosing to be pessimistic because it's easy? And making that choice, that hard choice to think of things more positively and start rewiring that brain. Because you only have one brain, you have one body. Like, it's so important to make things easier, because life will throw a lot of curveballs at you, and the more that you can think positively about things, the more emotionally resilient you will be in very difficult situations. Full stop. Like 100%. I have no idea what life has in store for me. I can guarantee there is not going to be some fun times, maybe coming sooner than I would like, maybe not. I don't like to think of it that way. There are going to be huge things that are completely out of my control, and if I can trust myself to think more positively now about smaller situations, I can only imagine how that can accumulate over time. And eventually, when I'm faced with a really hard situation, that I will feel that I can trust myself to feel optimistic and positive about it, or at least find some things in that situation that I can feel optimistic about and grateful for, and recognize ways that I can make it less hard. So yeah, these were my 1:30 a.m. thoughts. I hope everybody enjoyed. I am always open to suggestions, so if anybody ever wants to reach out, I love to hear from you all. So please text me if you listened. I love to get feedback, especially if like audio, video. This is like a super old video camera that I got off Amazon, but it's like kind of grainy and cool. So anywho, always great talking with you, even though you guys don't talk back. But till next time, bye.